Hey, 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 welcome to the Really Charlie podcast. I'm your host, Charlie Perry, along with my co hosts, Russell Ramus, Frank Slaughter, with our outstanding guests, Robert and Bobby Grier. This is an honor to have you all on this podcast. And before I, continue, um, I just want to welcome everybody here and please, please comment in the comment section. Let Mr. Grier know why he's here, and we want to give him his flowers while he's standing. Um, Man is 89 years old, just a few weeks from his 90th birthday.
Wow.
Just that in itself is a great accomplishment here. So, welcome, Mr. Grier. Mr. Grier, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you very much.
Doing
Thank,
well. Thanks for having us.
thank you. Um, Frank, you told me about this man. You told me about his son. And I said, that's a great idea. Let's do this. And we did it. We did it. And the the greatest thing is if you want to make something happen, you got to go after it. And I got that encouragement by Frank Slaughter, and I really really appreciate you just pushing me. You only had to push me a little bit because when I seen and found out the history about Mr. Greer, I was like, man, I remember that story. But and now that he's here, I'm loving it. This is going to be a great, great podcast.
Well, it's a story that needs to be told. Many African Americans have done great things in our country, and unfortunately, we don't get to hear them.
Yeah,
But when we have somebody, a living legend, in front of us, we have to go for these kind of stories because this is firsthand experience rather than get it from the newspapers or get it from the books later on. Today, we have a chance to highlight Mr. Greer's accomplishments that he's done for this country, what he's done for college football, as well as the pro football. And I'm sure
and
he's done more things after that in his community. So
true.
thank
And
you
we're
for
gonna
having
let me give a little history to our listeners and
me.
viewers.
Okay.
Bobby Grier was born in 1933. Is a former football player. He was the first African American football player to break the color barrier. Um, of the United States Collegiate Sugar Bowl in 1956, which is held in New Orleans, Louisiana, particularly in the Deep South in the mid 1950s, was a period of stringent racial tensions, segregation from sports, as well as um, as well as other areas of life. This is the first African American that played in a collegiate game um, when it was all segregated. Now I want you to understand that this man played both sides of the ball. There's no timeout for him. There was maybe a little brief water break, but knowing that generation, they didn't want to take any time off from being on that field. They had to showcase what they had. And I don't know about you, but Mr. Greer, you showcased a lot, man. God bless you.
Thank you.
The also inducted in the University of Pittsburgh Hall of Fame. Definitely, that's a feat in itself, also. So he's definitely you don't have enough room on the walls from all his accomplishments. What do you? So, Mr. Greer, I want to go back to the time when you were at high school, and you get this. When did you know that you were going to play for Pittsburgh Panthers?
Oh,
Was it a scholarship? Um, Someone approached you, or you just walked on? Because we have a local man here in New Bedford named Bobby Watkins, and he walked on at Ohio State, and that's the only way he was going to be able to play.
no, I was selected by Pitt to play for the uh,
Good, good.
Mhm.
Um, I just wanted to know that history. I didn't know it. Whether you walked on at Pittsburgh or got a scholarship, and but
you know, the scholarship to
good,
Pittsburgh.
good.
They saw me play. in Ohio, and they came over and asked me to come and play for them.
That's amazing. I like that.
I have a quick question now. Didn't somebody else go with you to Pitt?
Yes, 2 other players went with me.
Okay. Are they still alive?
Yeah, they're still alive, but they didn't finish Pitt. They just played 1 year,
Okay.
and I played the whole time.
That 1 year, was it the pressure getting to them, or was it something they just couldn't do it?
You know, it was just so.
Okay. All right. Frank, I know you have a couple of questions. Why don't we start off with you, and you can ask Mr. Grier any questions.
Well, one thing I like that you went back to his high school years, which never dawned on me, and the fact that they came up to you and they asked you, "Hey, we got a scholarship at the University of Pittsburgh," which I'm sure was predominantly white at the time. How did it feel?
Well, it was kind of shaky, but it was good. I came through it pretty good.
And what were your parents thinking? My son got a scholarship to this prestigious all-white university. What were they thinking?
Oh, I have my father, and mainly my mother. She thought it was great that I got a scholarship.
Yeah.
And we didn't have to pay for it.
Big time. And you're not just a college football player, so you must have had aspirations of, majoring in an endeavor. What was your major?
My major in college was business.
Okay.
All right. Good. Good. The one thing about back then is, even for me growing up, decades later, I couldn't think about college because my folks just couldn't afford it, and then being back then, getting at a scholarship was probably pie in the sky. The I want to touch up on probably days before the Sugar Bowl. How was that? How was that for you and your family, your teammates? Was it a lot of stress for you, or was it? How was y'all thinking going into that game?
I think there was a lot of stress going, but me being the only black player to play there. In fact, on the team, there was just one other black player, but they brought him along to be in company with me.
Mm-hmm. Good. Awesome. Now, Russell.
Yeah.
You had a few questions for Mr. Grier. Why don't you?
Well, it was a pretty the time that before the game. There were a lot of things going on in the community. Emmett Till, Rosa Parks. There were all of these things going on around you. Looking at all that, did your parents tell you anything to help carry you into this situation? Like, what did they say to you? I'm trying to think of the moment when you left the house and you went to the game. What was it that was inspiring that maybe they said or anyone else that was going to keep you going?
That was my mother. She talked to me. She just said, "Go out and play your best," and that's it.
And didn't your coach?
And our coach says, "Go out and play." So I said, "We know you're good, and you're gonna make a pro."
Good.
Make us proud of you. We're also proud of you.
And another thing is that we were fortunate because we grew up in the boys club, which is now the Boys and Girls Club. We were surrounded by a lot of people who influenced us or taught us or coached us. Before you even went to high school, were you playing, let's say, in the community? What attracted you to football? knowing that you were up against a lot of this stuff? What attracted you to play? Did you play with your community, the community friends?
That's a play with the community play. Massillon was pretty well known back then for their football. And well, all the young players played there.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
I
what,
was
what,
going
what, go on.
to say,
sorry.
I'll let you know real quickly. Of course, the legendary Paul Brown, who
Yes.
founded the Browns and also the Bengals.
Mhm.
He was a coach at Massillon High School before Dad's coach, but he coached out at Massillon, so it was a big tradition as far as football there.
Real nice.
Real
Real nice.
So may I ask, you went to integrated school?
Sorry about that. No, you're just grabbing a Kleenex.
Oh no.
Yeah, your school was integrated. Yeah.
Yeah, the school was integrated.
Wow, I did not know that back then.
Oh, yeah.
So you were ahead of the game.
Most of the schools in Ohio were integrated.
Mm-hmm. And let me ask you, being integration sometimes don't mean a thing if all you do is sit in the back of the classroom. Was it fair?
No, we were involved with all the students were involved, no matter what their color was.
Wow.
And the reason I'm saying that, and just to go back to Russell and Charlie's background, we went to like a school in Massachusetts, and everybody from the projects where we were from, West Lawn, almost every male and female was held back at least one grade. It was like automatic. You were not going to just go all the way through high school in 12 years. I was held back twice, and a lot of other people, yeah. And that was it. And that was the integration we had. We went to school with them, but we really didn't have the same education.
Yeah, go ahead. Good.
And that's why I asked the question, Mr. Grier, if integration really was integrated back then. And from what you're saying, it was. And that means you got a great education.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Massillon was a school where Paul Brown make it that good. The football team had a outstanding football team back.
Good. Rob, this question's for you. Is there a biography for your dad?
Well, as a matter of fact, one of Dad's good friends wrote his PhD dissertation.
That's right.
On the story, and he did a fantastic job as far as bringing. It's amazing how words can bring you back to another era and a time. Obviously I wasn't alive, but he really helped to sum up the era. This Supreme Court.
You're muted, yeah.
Sorry about that. What was happening 5 and 10 years prior to the game and with Emmett Till and everything. So he definitely did a really good job at that. And then also, there's a lot of smaller clips from like the Sugar Bowl, and Dad's also in the Sugar Bowl Hall of Fame. He went in with Jerome Bettis and Todd Blackledge and a couple of greats who played in the Sugar Bowl. But there are some videos that are definitely out there as far as Dad and the story and really kind of bringing it together.
So Mr. Grier, you were inducted in the Sugar Bowl Hall of Fame with Bennett, with Jerome Bennett at the same time?
Yeah, so
That must have been at all. I mean, Jerome Bennett was probably, oh, wow. He was like a little kid in a candy store. He said, wow, Mr. Grier. Oh, that's, and it's usually reversed for him. He's usually the one that's, getting all the excitement around him. And now you see this Hall of Famer, and Jerome just going over Bobby Grier,
So what was it like when Jerome Bennett was focusing all the attention on you?
I don't know if you're able to see this or your folks. It may not be.
No, not really.
Maybe tilt the top down a little bit, and then Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Oh
Cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Yes.
The
A little
bus.
closer. Perfect.
Mr. Grier.
Look at that.
The bus and Mr. Grier.
That's perfect. Yeah.
And so he knew the history. Jerome Bennis knew the history.
Yes, he knew history.
And
And,
could you
and
add
again,
that?
even though Jerome Bennis, he was a few years out of football, here you come, you're a few decades out of football. And as Charlie always says, you were getting your flowers at that time.
Mhm.
How did that feel?
Yes, that was good.
He says, yeah.
That was good.
It was good.
You-
He had a good time, and as a matter of fact, also another family friend is Tony Dungy, and Tony's like a
Wow.
historian of the game, big time.
Wow.
Tony used to play with the Steelers and would come out to the house with his wife Lauren, and they would just talk football, just football, everything football, the old days, how it was, and everything. So, and that was while Tony was playing. So now he's, of course, Super Bowl winning coach, and we still stay in touch from time to time. But he's down in Tampa with just a huge family. So he's a great guy.
Oh, man.
I have a question. I have a question to ask when it comes to all these different, besides the players. And this person, Rusty Coles, who was the referee, did you ever get to meet him later or years later? He was the guy that made that decision. Did you ever get to meet him?
No, I never had a chance to meet on that.
Do you think he's still alive, or?
I don't know. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
You just dealt with that, so you just kept your cool even after the game. If you had a chance to speak to him again, what would you say to him?
Okay, I say, was this true? What you did?
Yeah.
Because
Perfect.
it was proven by pictures that that's not what had happened. So how, if he was sitting here right now, would you be sort of angry at him, or would you say, based on the facts, you were wrong, and how would you deal with that?
Well, I say, based with all the facts before you, would you believe reverse your decision?
Right there.
Yeah.
That would be for him to do that right here. If we had him right now, he would have to say that. Yeah. Because we always sort of have people years later after they've done these kind of things come to us. And I have a similar story, but where someone came years later and said, I was sorry, I did the wrong thing. And I accepted it. I thought that was good. It's too bad we didn't have him, because that would be amazing to hear him say right now, yeah, it was the wrong decision.
Yeah.
But your teammates seem like really, do you stay in touch with some of the teammates? Because they seem like they were really, they really supported you, and they were really, did you know some of them from maybe from school, from another time, or high school, or?
No, none of them.
None of them.
We're all from different areas of Pennsylvania, Ohio. I think even a couple of them come from New York.
And they're still alive? You get to see them and speak to them now?
Every once in a while I do.
Good job, Frank.
It's a beautiful picture. That's a beautiful picture. They must be real. So once in a while you get to speak to them, and how do they respond to you? How do they respond now? The same, or they're still excited?
We're always happy to see each other.
Yeah.
We're still around.
And that's where I do my best to make sure that I get him back to the home games. It's a logistical challenge, but we make it.
Yep.
And he gets there. He does, from the guys that are still, left with us, and those that do come to the games. Like there's one, Gordy Oliver, who has a tailgate, and as a matter of fact, Gordy's having his Christmas party coming up next Friday. So
oh wow!
We're going to go to that, and there's going to be a lot of
Nice.
people there and everything. So. So the games really make it nice for him to kind of, especially with COVID and everything, to kind of get out and relax. And of course, we're safe. We wear our masks and everything. So, but it's a good time.
But again, going back to that picture, you just could see the love that your teammates had for you and how much they admired you. You're in the center of that picture. You're holding the newspaper. The newspaper is talking about how the South was dealing with this. And all four of your friends are thumbs down. They said, this is not what we're about. And there again, that's the thing that was breaking the racial tension in America. To know that a man is a man no matter who he is.
You're right. That's
Mhm.
That's why I
absolutely.
love that picture.
Yeah.
Right. That's a good picture.
Mhm.
And there's one of his teammates, Bob Rossborough, who he's still with us, but it's like every time he always reminds me, he said, you know what, when we all came together and then voted to say, without Bob, we're not going down there. So no Grier, no game.
Wow.
When he said, when they left the locker room, he said that's one of the best feelings. He felt so proud, and he rates it up there with his wedding. And,
I feel
wow.
it. I feel the goosebumps.
and when he brings it up to this day, he gets choked up.
Yeah.
Now,
Yes.
you, Mr. Grier, you guys are playing against 12 people, probably a little bit more, probably 15 people. It was Pittsburgh Panthers against probably 15 other people on the field, and that's including the referees. Now, you had 50 yards rushing. I guarantee you. Well, I assume that you would have had 100 yards, but there were some holding flags on laundry on the field when you probably broke it maybe 15, 20 yards, and it got called back. Was that the case?
Yeah, yes. I would say that was the case.
He still ended up the leading rusher of the game, though.
Yeah.
That's true. They took half of it away, and he's still number one. Awesome.
Those were 50 hard yards.
Mhm.
Yeah,
you,
well, it
you
was.
can hear our Massachusetts accent. Hard yards.
Hard. That's Frank. He hasn't left it yet. Yeah.
But
Mr. Grier, what I want to know is, because we all try to, I played a little bit of football. I wasn't a very big guy. I was small. But what were you doing? Because a lot of people now, they all, everybody's got to go to a gym and they got to run to the gym and pay the gym bill and everything else. What were you doing to keep yourself in shape, and how were you also keeping your health together? Was it a certain diet, or were you, there's got to be something that kept that energy going?
His mother's cooking.
That's it. It was my mother.
It's always mom's cooking, man. I know that.
Yeah. She kept us in shape.
And they walked a lot,
Yeah.
especially in Massillon. Massillon's a small town, but he walked to school every day. As a matter of fact, with one of his a childhood friend, who he's still friends with today, who ended up becoming the superintendent of Massillon schools. But they walked together ever since they were in elementary school all the way through high school. And then whenever he came to Pitt, of course, Pitt used to have a stadium on campus. And, we're in Pittsburgh, so there's all kinds of hills. So, they were walking every day up and down big hills just to go to practice. But we had talked about this before, the weightlifting. Did you do a lot of weightlifting?
No, we didn't do a lot of weightlifting.
Big
I'm
old
glad.
country
I'm
strong.
glad you
Country
said.
strong.
I'm glad you said that, because I've told Frank. Frank used to be my coach. He would get us running in the morning, and I always say that I don't like gyms. I always like outdoor, getting in shape outdoors and running and stuff.
Right.
And I guess if I say I don't like gyms, Frank's going to be upset because he's a boxing coach. but Mr. Grier, you're the best, because you're going to prove that you do not have to pay to go to a gym to get in good shape.
That's it. Absolutely.
Did you hear that, Frank?
And I'm good with it. Because the proof of the pudding is Mr. Grier and what
Mr.
he's
Grier.
accomplished done.
Mr. Grier said it. He said it. Mr. Grier said it. Everybody heard it. You don't have to go to the gym every day.
All right, just put gyms out of business today, okay?
Yeah. Russell's steady taking money out of people's pockets. Mr. Grier, Georgia Tech was kind of real instrumental for as far as support during that time, during that game, just before the Sugar Bowl. Um, have they reached out to you, and maybe did some commemoration for you or anything like that, Georgia Tech?
No, they haven't done anything like that.
Okay. Yeah.
But we are blessed enough to have connected to the grandson of the former Georgia Tech president at the time. His name was Blake Van Leer. And when Frank held up that picture and the ad, the banner that was going across that the Georgia students rioted, well, when the governor came in and said that this is the South's Armageddon, and I forbid Georgia Tech to go and play in the game. So this was the governor of politics coming in and saying that he forbids Georgia Tech to come and play. It was white Blake Van Leer who turned around and told that governor, said, if you don't let Georgia Tech play in that game, you're going to be looking for a new president of this university.
True.
So, you can imagine what that was also like to have a white person in the Deep South, standing up to a governor, very, very political. But the headlines for that story that Frank wrote was Georgia Tech students, they wanted to play in the game. They wanted to go because it was a very prestigious thing. There weren't that many bowls back then. And so the students rioted and they went to the governor's mansion. They burned the governor in effigy.
Wow.
Then they got turned away. Then they went to the State House. They broke through the Georgia Bureau of Investigation's barricades. They broke into the State House, the Georgia State House, and they trashed it.
Wow.
So, almost like January 6th.
But in a good, but for a good cause, correct?
Yeah. Good.
Right. It was over a game. They wanted their team to play in the Sugar Bowl.
And again, that's how, we advance race issues in America, is to have everybody on our side for the right reason. And that's what that was all about.
Yes.
Because it could have went south on us as a pun, and could have been the other way.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely.
It's the president of Georgia Tech actually he got applauded for his his courage, and his stance on the situation. And I believe it was on the I believe it was Senate floor. I believe I can't remember. I'm trying to remember that history, but he got applauded for standing, and the people that applauded him were white Southerners that were applauding him. So there was many people that were standing behind this game. They wanted it to happen, and it's nice to hear that, because it's part of the civil rights era, and that was, people think that it only started in 1960 or late 60s. It definitely started way before that. It was in the 50s. There was several gatherings and protests and so on and so forth. So, that was a great era.
Mr. Grier, why don't you speak on that, please?
Excuse me.
Yeah.
It was a good time back then. And Marcy, can you speak on that?
Oh, as far as the time, you hit the nail on the head. It was definitely a challenging and difficult time for the country, and I think this is what Ivan Maisel out of ESPN called Dad a reluctant hero. That he was wanting to play the game. He wasn't trying to make any political statements. Mm-hmm. He was focused on his role as a teammate of the University of Pittsburgh football team. So it's just that how things unfolded, really started to take things to a whole new level, because Dad was getting letters from like all over the world, and we still have a bunch of them. And 99.9% are all positive and talking about, I wish the governor would just stay out of it, and good luck. And so.
And I mean, that comes from good people, and it also comes from football fans. You know, a
You're right.
football fan wants to see a game. They want to see the best of the best. You know, and Mr. Grier, you were the best of the best. You know, you don't play for the University of Pittsburgh by just being best of the bums. You wasn't that. You know, you were one of the best. I mean, Rob, look at the T-shirt. Look where he's coming from. He's coming from some cream of the crop people, and I just I don't know. I'm still amazed by this story, and we've been looking into it for a long time. And I just Rob, you're gonna have to do some work, man. You got to create your own biography for your dad. You know,
Definitely.
Grier,
Mhm.
Grier-The Grier.
There was
something like that.
there was a question. A listener has a question. Michael Reese Wayne Reese wanted to know if you ever got a chance to meet Jackie Robinson.
No, I didn't. I'm sorry about that. I never had a chance.
No, that's
But I can definitely, I'll get Dad to tell this story. But our cousin Rosie Grier played at Penn State, and I don't know if your viewers remember Rosie Grier, but Rosie is part of the fearsome foursome with Merlin Olsen, played for the Giants and played for the Rams. But also, he was one of the people instrumental in catching Sirhan,
That's right.
Robert Kennedy's killer out in California. But do you want to tell the story about when you guys played against Rosie and you ran the ball? Oh, you got to tell the story.
Whenever I ran the ball against Rosie, we played against Penn State, we'd always laugh with each other. And so everybody.
You went mute. You went mute.
Yep.
You went mute. Could you start again? Can you start again, please?
There you go.
Can you start it again? Yeah.
Okay.
About you running, and what did he tell you?
About me running, and he says, I'll get you, cuz.
I'll get you.
Hey, you're not my cousin. We both laughed.
I love it.
You come from pretty good stock. I mean, Rosie Grier, and then Pam Grier is related to you. How? The actress?
No, not I'm related.
Well, yeah. We have a big family in South Carolina and in Georgia, and it's a huge family. We have the patriarch of our family had 68 children.
Wow. Nice.
And and this was, of course, during slavery times, and he was definitely used as a stud, and he ended up getting 2 white women pregnant, and they had to, in order to save his life, move him up north. So he moved to New Jersey, and I have more family in New Jersey. So yeah, we have family all over the place.
That's amazing, because how many young men like me, Russell, Frank, wanted to marry Pam Grier? You would have had like 50 million relatives.
I would go see her twice.
Yeah.
Robert, right down the street from my house is a very old theater, and when the posters came up, when Pam Grier was there, I mean, it was like ants. You should have seen all of us just running over to see Pam Grier. So it was unstoppable, and
Nice.
Well,
but that's a different story.
Well,
as much as we can say.
Before we stop that, I just, Rob, if you can do anything, I'd like to have Pam Grier on the Really Charlie podcast, so my wife can say, "Really, Charlie?"
And I'll second that with my wife. Really, Russ, Frank, really, Frank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My wife won't know too much about Pam Grier. She was born in about 64, 65. And she came to this country when she was older, so she wouldn't know. So I wouldn't have to say really. I just say Yep, I'm watching Pam Grier.
Mr. Grier, and maybe Robbie, you can answer this. Were you influenced by your father with football, and were you what kind of sports did you play?
Yeah, I was definitely influenced by Dad and playing football. With football, he had a lot of injuries. He's had like 5 back surgeries. For the longest, he didn't have any kneecaps. Just growing up, didn't have any kneecaps. So he had arthritis was in there and everything. And so as I was growing up, he didn't want me to play youth football. He was like, wait until you're old enough, your bones have developed. So baseball was my sport. So that's what I did, is I played baseball.
Very nice. Very, very nice.
Well, you just said something that's like so with what's going on in this era. And Mr. Grier, when you said you didn't want him to play sports as a young person because there was a controversial thing going on with young people being hit in the head, that their brains are too soft to get injuries like that. And that's what you probably said to him. A lot of parents now believe too that you need really to wait because your body's not fully developed to take this kind of contact. And in hearing now that you took so much contact back then and it resulted later in life, that could result.
Yeah, that's right. I think the time, wait till later, wait till you get a little more in age where you won't get hurt and a little bigger, mainly.
Yeah. Well, there's one thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get a Pittsburgh Panthers jersey, and I'm gonna put Mr. Grier's name on the back of it, and I'm gonna wear it every chance I get.
Number 38. Number 38.
It's a good number, isn't it, man?
Yeah, sure is.
That's awesome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very
Now,
much.
can I advance this a little bit? Okay.
Sure. Go ahead.
Football years are over with you. You did your thing at the university. You graduated, obviously, as a business major. What did you go on to be after that?
I went on in the Air Force. I wanted to be a pilot.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't make it, but I got to be a missile officer. And went through that. And spent my time in the U.S. Air Force.
And how long were you in for?
Nice cup.
11 years, 6 months, and 28 days.
Could you repeat that? You were in there for how long?
11 years.
11 years.
Okay.
Wow.
And what rank did you obtain? What's your highest rank you obtained?
Came out of captain.
Nice. And the reason, I have a background in the military, family's been in the military, all that, like Russell's dad. I went to 2 branches, but I remember the Air Force was my last branch. And I remember missiles was probably one of the worst assignments that an officer could get out of the academy, especially when they wanted to be officers, because they were usually up there in the north part of the country, North Dakota.
Mm-hmm.
Drills were daily, were constant. They stick you down in the hole for 12 hours, lock the door, and you don't get out until your 12-hour shift is over. You sit in the chair and you got these 2 buttons you have to push and all that stuff and all these drills. So how did you deal with that?
Well, it didn't bother me at all. It seemed been that long. But my missile was a more one where you took up on the ground, not the big one.
Okay.
Small
Okay.
one.
That's nice. Some of our listeners are saying thank you for your service, and I want to say thank you for your service. Of U.S. veterans mean a lot to me, and I just want to say thank you.
Charlie, can I ask you, are there any questions from the audience?
Well, one was they were asking about the book and where could it be found? It would be that dissertation from that Rob had talked about. I was wondering where we could locate that.
Mm-hmm.
So we are in the process of putting one together. So we don't have a physical book yet, but it's in the works.
Good. That will be number one for me that month. Whenever it comes out, I would definitely grab that. And I know Russell will. Russell, you need to put that in the library, right, brother?
That's right. I just wanted to
wait a minute. We're going to get signed copies. What are you talking about, Charlie?
Signed copies.
3 signed
Yes,
copies coming out. We're paid for them. You got to sign them.
I just want to say you did have one listener, Ian and
Ian White.
Excuse me, Ian. I'm saying Ian. Ian White would like to say thank you for your service. So we do have a really good listening audience right now. That's wants to tell you they appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank them. Thank you for listening.
Now, I got a question. Your granddaughter did a great interview with you. That was a great video. I talked to Rob about it, and that was one of my favorites.
Can we talk about that?
Oh yes,
caregivers.
Yeah, that was part of. So with of course Dad being a veteran, and there's unique issues and needs with the veteran community, especially after coming out of service. And so Dad, works with the Veterans Administration. We have no issues or problems with them. They've been really a blessing in Dad's life. Some of his, as a matter of fact, his last knee surgery he had there, they have a partnership with UPMC as far as doctors, and they just did a fantastic job just from A to Z. But we also got connected to the Elizabeth Dole Foundation. And of course, most recently, as you know, Bob Dole has passed on. He was 98 years old.
May rest in peace.
But his wife started the foundation, and the foundation is focused on veteran healthcare issues as well as veteran caregiver issues. So that's where we were fortunate enough to be part of a film called Sky Blossom. And this documentary highlighted 5 families across the United States and what challenges people go through as far as taking care of veterans and just daily life activities that many people may not realize or understand. So, but in there, they also told a little bit about the Sugar Bowl and Dad's.
Thank you for mentioning that, Rob. You and I had talked. Russell, your papers make a lot of background noise.
Yeah. Excuse me.
The Sky Blossom. I want to, second that. That's something that we all should look at and view and check out. And thanks to Rob for bringing that to my attention, because that would have definitely been something that I would have missed. And because you mentioned it, I checked it out and very impressed with it.
Yeah, that's a podcast in itself.
Yes, it is. Sure is.
Taking
Sherry Barrows says she leaves a comment, and I'll get back to you, Frank.
No.
Sherry Barrows she says that I am delighted to see the podcast with all those wonderful fellas, and to have the one and only as a guest, Bobby Grier, who broke barriers to the NFL. Now that would be more like collegiate, right, Mr. Grier? The first Black American Black football player.
Yes,
Say thank you, Mr. Grier, for my brothers and sons and grandsons to have the opportunity to play the game. Thank you for paving the way, and to see your involvement of being a great, it says coach, but it would be a player to inspire to all. You never gave up on the game, and we all love you. This is such an honor, and not only to see a great person as you.
Oh, thank you very much.
That's awesome. That's fantastic.
And Charlie, I want to say this though. When you say this collegiate, his grace as a player and what happened to the Sugar Bowl, they had a lot of influence on the NFL and how we know that we can bring these players up and they're gonna represent the game with the same kind of grace and humility that Mr. Grier did. So yes, it was collegiate, but also it was also pros as well.
True, and then one of the things I was part of the introduction, and one of the things I wanted to say, and I didn't, but it was that what he has done is he was able to give the greats an opportunity, and I was just going to go down the line from Jim Brown, and I knew the relationship, but I in my vocabulary I would have said Jim Brown, Rosie Grier, Walter Payton, Randall Cunningham, and just go on, Jerome Bettis, and we would go on and on and on, and Earl Campbell. It's just the legacy the legacy of those players just being black in itself, is thanks to Mr. Grier and everyone that made this game happen. We have some greats. And when we mention those greats, we also have to mention Bob Grier. When we mention Rosie Grier, got to mention Bob Grier. When we mention Randall Cunningham, we got to say Bob Grier, because guess what? If he didn't do it, how long would it have taken? How long would it have taken for the next person? Because you know what? If they had some resistance and no one wanted to test it, when would have been the next time that they were able to test it, Or even it could have stopped a lot of things. It could have stopped the recruitment of black players in those institutions that we have across the nation. So the timing was great and the play was great. And I love it. I love it.
I wanted to interject because you heard me flipping around with the paper and I was getting excited. I just had to share this. I found this on Wikipedia. And on this paper here, I was looking at from the times, the incident that happened to you and right up until this current time. You know that the audience grew, the audience stayed consistent, that more people came to the games because of your actions. The audience didn't leave. The audience wasn't upset. So there goes a factual proof that the audience was excited about seeing that happen, and it kept growing and growing and growing right up into this day. And that's what I found on Wikipedia, and I was like really, really impressed that you made the audience grow. Not only that, everybody wanted to keep coming after that. They didn't just walk away.
Oh, thank you.
And in Pittsburgh especially, because Pitt lost the game, people were upset because they showed it on national TV. And I remember, growing up as a kid, Dad was like a celebrity. People would, that's Bobby Grier, that's Bobby Grier. And then now I'm a kid, I'm like, Dad, how do they know you? He's like, remember I played football and I had the football pictures in the rooms and everything. It's like, oh yeah, that's right. So, but it was always cool because like this one time there's Satchel Paige. Wow, and he's coming up to Dad, Bobby Grier, man, I can't believe it's you. And I'm thinking, Dad, that's Satchel Paige. So yeah, it was pretty awesome.
And that makes me smile. And I'll tell you why again, and I'm going to reiterate this. It was the grace of your father in a losing game that made it possible for them to us to advance. With the grace of the other players. I'm trying to think. I'm sorry. The not Hank Aaron, but Robinson, Jackie Robinson. They at the time we couldn't be militant. We couldn't be angry because that was the stereotype they wanted to see.
Mm-hmm.
But when they saw an intelligent black man with grace and understood the game was bigger than him, the loss was not his fault, but he could accept it because it was bigger than him. That's why the game grew for African Americans and for the rest of the country. And the NFL should be thanking Mr. Grier for bringing this, for exploding NFL the way it is today.
And Dad always taught me to, you win like a champion and you lose like a champion.
So true.
Yes. Yes.
So true.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Play the next play, you know, and in
That's
some
it.
cases it's the next game. You know, you play that next play, regardless if it was good, bad. You know, you score a touchdown. Guess what? You got to run, get back on that sideline. You may be part of that kickoff, you know, or something. You got to play the next play, and whether it's good, bad, or ugly, you definitely got to play that next play. And I enjoyed coaching football, and very much so. It just was that one particular sport that you know, it allowed me. Actually, it's some of my greatest friends are from my football teams. You know, and it's just something. It's just something about that sport that does a lot. You know, as far as relationships.
It's the American game.
Yeah.
The
That's
American game.
it. That's it.
And you know, Mr. Grier, you and I definitely have something in common with you. I did play football myself when I was in high school. Unfortunately, because of a back injury, I couldn't play anymore. The reason I'm together is because of a doctor. It was a doctor who was for the Patriots, put me back together. But I not only played football, but I was also a swimmer, which was an unusual circumstance at my high school. But I proved that I could do both those things, and I'll always, once an athlete, will always be an athlete, and you're still an athlete sitting there.
Yes, you are.
Just because you have injuries doesn't mean that you can't do it, and we will prove it till the end day. So respectfully, I know you're still an athlete. Injuries don't mean anything to us. We're still going to move ahead.
Charlie, there was a good comment. I want you to read it.
I sure will, Frank.
Yeah.
The Mr. Grier, someone Ian White says that what is something that Mr. Grier might want the youth of today to know? Any advice, maybe either in football or in life?
Great. Take your time.
And any advice for the kids of today, you know, in life or in sports?
You know, in sports and in life, play your best and always do your best.
Awesome. That's a great. You can't. That should be in quotations. You know, put on a board somewhere. It definitely. It's for everybody. It's definitely for
That was
everybody.
a great question. Great question from the audience.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Ian is he's actually a service. He's a veteran himself. You know.
Okay.
So he's a veteran himself, and definitely doing a lot in this city. And he, you know, he came here and he transferred here, and he built quite a life for himself and his family. So he's definitely someone that's you know, gets thumbs up by me all the time because he's always trying to do something for others.
And before we go, I would like to, in the warmer months, invite Bobby and Mr. Grier to New Bedford, Massachusetts, to see our great city, to see the history of our city. There was a city where Frederick Douglass escaped from slavery and understood that the North was much more better than the South when it came to treating people with equality. And we got a lot of, an Underground Railroad went through New Bedford as well. And we got historians like Miss Lee Blake. She could bring you around the city and tell you everything about the Underground Railroad, Frederick Douglass, the whaling ships. Our background, Cape Verdean background, we came off the ship to New Bedford. And one of the things was when you got on ship and you came and you didn't have no shoes, you would say Saprata Tabash, right? I can't say it right. And that means throw those shoes, work shoes on boat. Because if you got off the boat with no shoes, you went back on the boat. So people would stand on the pier and throw their shoes for the relatives to wear when they got off the boat.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. And if you watch the movie Glory with Denzel Washington, what they didn't sort of emphasize is that William H. Carney is the gentleman that carried the flag. When the flag was dropped, he's from right here in our neighborhood. Matter of fact, the building that I'm living in, he actually rode by in a horse in a parade years later after the Civil War. but it took him many, many years to even get his medal. And he actually had to have a friend go to Paris to get it because he got the Congressional Medal of Honor, but it wasn't given it to him for years later. He had to go with correspondence to get it back, and he's buried in one of our local cemeteries. So, along with a lot of the 54 that you see in the movie, they are actually buried in our city. So, we see that and we know that because there were people that would travel, with the battle squad and then bring some of the bodies back. So some of them did come back and they're buried in our city. So we
will
see that
welcome
movie.
your history to come to our city and see our history.
Yes,
That would be awesome. We'd love to do that big time.
Yeah.
And we failed to mention Ezel Blair of the Greensboro Four. He's also a resident here in the city, and where they did the sit-ins at the college universities and different
Greensboro, North
Greensboro.
Carolina.
In Greensboro, they did the sit-ins, and he's right here in the city, a dear friend of my dad's. But that's another historian here. And if you do venture off to New Bedford, Massachusetts, that's somebody I would definitely connect with you guys, along with Lee Blake, because you can't get any better than that, right, Frank?
You can't. She knows. She's our historian for years. Our mentor.
And she's African American.
Mm-hmm.
All right,
Okay.
guys, I really appreciate you guys co-hosting, and Rob Grier kind of co-guest with his dad, Mr. Bobby Grier. That is definitely something that this is by far my favorite. This podcast is definitely something I'm going to send all over the place so people learn a little bit more about you. And Rob, when you get that material cover to cover, get it all squared away. We got to talk to Russell Ramus and get into the main library here in New Bedford and get it into libraries across the country too.
Most definitely. And we also hopefully soon will have some good news as far as either a documentary or a scripted film. So we'll definitely keep you
Wow.
Awesome. That is real nice.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank
right.
you very much.
Thank you.
Very, very appreciative. Thank you very much.
Okay, you guys keep up the history. January 2nd is going to be the 90th birthday of Bobby Grier. So everyone, listeners, viewers, remember January 2nd, I want everyone to get on their pages and Facebook, Instagram, and say happy birthday to Bobby Grier. And I'm going to start the trend as soon as that day comes. And I'm going to actually start right at midnight, and toast to the Grier family. Rob, if you can kiss your cousin, kiss Pam Grier for me. I really.
Really, Charlie. Really, Charlie.
All
All
right.
right.
All right.
Love you guys.
And hope to see you in New Bedford. Let me know. I'll be with you.
All right.
That sounds good.
Yeah,
Definitely.
thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you,
God
Bob.
bless you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Take care.
Yes.
Okay.
Peace.
Peace.
Bye. Peace. Oh, that's awesome.
All right, everyone. That was the guest, Bobby Grier, and I can't forget his son, Rob Grier, my co-host, Frank Slaughter and Russell Ramus, doing their thing as they always. I can count on those two for doing a lot of things for me. They really bring a lot to this podcast, and I welcome them on this podcast anytime they want. Regardless of what the subject is, if Frank and Russell want to co-host on this podcast, they can do it anytime they want, no matter what. Bob Grier is Bobby Grier, first African American to play in the Sugar Bowl 1956. Please look into that history. and share it with your family and friends. And when you're talking about papers during Black History Month, and we all know Black History is every month, but if you're doing a paper, you know what, or your kid is suggesting that they have to do a paper at school, give them the name Bobby Grier, because there's a lot behind that man, a lot of history. So God bless. Thank you. And I'm going to continue on the Really Charlie podcast here on StreamYard, Anchor, Spotify, and YouTube. Please like and subscribe to this channel. This episode will be downloaded within the next few minutes on those platforms. Thank you very much. And have a good day and a good night.